Let's get to the serious issue with officials. Last year with Ted Valentine, when finally he gives you the second tee, you go out of the place, but knowing where your bench is, and you can head to your locker room, which is to the left, you start that way, and when about the time you get to the foul line, you start back, and you go right at Ted Valentine. I'm in the studio that night. I'm saying, don't hit him. Bob, don't let it go. Was this in your head? Could you have hit him, or was if you had said something, or were you out of control?
The thought crossed my mind. I mean, or shoot, or whatever. I mean, you know, it would have crossed my mind.
Why'd you go that way?
Because there's a telephone there, and I went immediately to call the supervisor of Big Ten officials. Right. You know, I got fined $10,000 for saying that this was a travesty when I had been ejected from a game for, at the invitation of another official, Eddie Hightower, going out on the floor to check with an injured player Luke Recker, who was down on the floor. And the officials are far and away the most protected people in sports today. I mean, you can't say anything about them. You can't question their calls. They have the, and they're wrong a lot. And when they're wrong, they should be held accountable.
Gambling is still an issue in college basketball?
I think the only thing that you can do is constantly remind kids that you can get in a lot of difficulty, not necessarily with the NCAA, or you can just get in a lot of legal difficulty through gambling, because gambling is not necessarily legal everywhere. And, you know, we're on Gambling Minute. You and I have always thought this: the most susceptible guy in any gambling scheme is an official, without any question. Absolutely. And I mean, if we only knew the truth about games that were controlled by officials having gambling interests, I think it would be amazing.
Well, let's get into recruiting. The mindset of kids out there today, they're spoiled by the system of recruiting. Those around AAU, or agents in the streets, or...
I think there are far more guys that have no business dealing with kids than those that do, that get involved in the summer basketball. They're the basketball bennies, the hangers-on. The summer basketball, I think, has been a great problem in recruiting, and I think it's actually hurt the quality of basketball. Sports Center shows absolutely nothing but MTV basketball. Dunks, blocks, dunks. And that's all kids see. And let's see a back cut. Let's see a kid in a really good stance where he forces a bad pass. Let's see some things that are the guts of basketball. Now a kid thinks, we had a really good kid after a game last year that he really had a role in, and his comment was, well, I had the best dunk of my career tonight. And I said, why? Did it count 4 points? No, it was still 2. I said, how about blockout? You know, I thought you blocked out well. That's why we won the game. You know, there's such a false sense of what basketball is about, I think, with kids today. They don't understand the game. They're better players, much more athletic, far more talented, but they don't understand how to play basketball nearly as well as kids 20 years ago did. Here's what I think should happen, and if I were given carte blanche to do this, my rule would be this. No summer recruiting at all, and then I'll get back to that in just a second. No summer recruiting at all. You can only evaluate a player's talents at his high school or in a gym owned by the school corporation for which he plays, under the supervision of somebody from the school system's coaching staff. Now, maybe the head coach isn't always available, but the JV coach or the junior high coach or somebody can be there to set up whatever this is, done totally at the high school. Now, maybe it's a really good kid and 25 coaches come in to watch the kid, fine, but it's done under the full control of the high school program.
Kid gets sweats, sneakers, a little spending money when he's in junior high school to play, and then in high school he's getting $50, $75 a week, etc. And then it gets into now where you've got shoe companies going in, taking over high schools, or shoe companies running specialty camps, and now we got a different mindset of the recruit.
And shoe companies recruiting. I mean, shoe companies recruiting for schools that wear their respective shoes. I mean, that's as big a thing as has happened, I think, and as bad a thing as has happened in college basketball here in the last 10 years. Our assistant coaches asked a woman from Texas about would there be a possibility of a kid on the team she was sponsoring perhaps being interested in coming to Indiana. Would we be able to perhaps get involved in recruiting this kid? Her first question was, well, what shoe does Indiana wear? And our coaches said, well, we wear Converse shoes. Her answer was, well, I am really partial to coaches that wear Nike shoes. Well, Nike is pumping money into this program in what they call their grassroots program. And the return for them is that the sponsor is going to direct anybody in that team or on that team that might have the wherewithal to play college basketball to a school that wears Nike shoes, going all the way up to the chance that if this kid's starting in high school, going to college, becoming a professional prospect, then is so heavily involved with Nike that Nike makes the contract signing with that particular kid. They're trying to protect, which I think is incredibly detrimental to college basketball.
Gentlemen, thanks. If you'd like to...
You had this priest who I thought was a drug. He shows up in a red vest. Father Huggins?
Father Higgins, Jim Higgins.
And all of a sudden, you come up to South Bend, you got the priest on the bench.
with a red sweater and a white collar. I'll never, now let me...
Tell the story about what he did the first play of the game.
Well, but let me back up first. You come into press conference and you say, when Knight comes in here, ask the son of a bitch what bar in Bloomington he got that guy out of that he dressed up like a priest. You didn't know that the Padre was ordained and everything else that you people do to these guys, you know. Sanctified, homilified, pontific. I don't know what the hell you guys do to these guys to make them priests, but he was. So anyhow, we jump center. And
this game's in South Bend.
It's in South Bend. And we jump, and we get the tip. And we come down, and somebody shoots and misses it, and Abernathy tips it in. And so I got the Padre sitting right behind me. And he jumps up at South Bend in his clerical collar, screams, "Atta boy, Aber, stick it in there!" Now, this is my buddy, Father Higgins. I reach around, I said, "Sit down! Sit down! Now, goddammit, I can't take care of this game and you both." And I mean, he doesn't even miss a beat. He says, "Coach," he said, "you got enough trouble taking care of the game. Don't worry about me. I'll handle myself."
He won a gold medal in the Olympics in '84. Team worked out in the Forum and went down to San Diego. And CM says to me, "Mike wants to send Ewing home." I said, "Send Ewing home? We start." He said, "No. He and Michael Jordan are roommates. They were wrestling. He hurt his neck, and he wants to send him home. We're concerned that he's going to send home Ewing." Were you really thinking about sending Ewing home?
Well, I think that Patrick was a little bit overprotected coming into the Olympic situation, and I just felt that he had a tough time getting with new people and new coaches and even players. And I saw him 2 years later, and I had never seen a guy that had opened up more. Players are up and down in your mind depending upon how they go in practice, and you know, a good-looking girl is usually a good-looking girl. You see her today, you see her tomorrow, she dresses, but usually she's pretty nice looking. Players aren't like that. Players are one thing today, they're another thing tomorrow. Next week they're something else, except for the really, really good ones. I mean, Jordan is the same all the time, but you can't use him as a barometer. There's still nobody tougher than Jordan. I don't care. I mean, you don't even think about that. But there's just nobody tougher.
Let's go to the '87 championship game. Keith Smart hits a shot. Did it surprise you that Syracuse didn't have anybody on the foul line with Derek Coleman on the line, and he missed both shots? You get the rebounds. Keith comes down and hits the baseline jump.
No, you know, Syracuse, I think Boeheim got some undue criticism about that. And I really believe that I would have done exactly the same thing that Syracuse did. The picture that I have of that shot that I have up and that I have in my mind is Darryl Thomas throwing the ball out to Keith. And that took something. Thomas has the ball. He's being double-teamed inside. It's going to be very difficult for him to get a shot off. And with about 8 seconds to go, he has the presence of mind to look, find an open guy, and get him the ball. And I think that is one of the really outstanding plays I've ever seen in basketball, was simply Darrell's pass.
Digger, thanks. And Coach, thanks for the time. That wraps it up for our 5-part conversation. But if you still want more on the general, we respectfully ask you go to ESPN.com and surf around there for a while. Coming up.